This happened about 8 years ago, and I still think about it whenever I'm alone on public transportation at night. I was 22 at the time, freshly graduated, broke, and working the kind of job you don't tell people about unless they ask twice. It was overnight cleaning for a private transit company. Basically, when the city trains stopped running, our crew went car by car, wiping down seats, mopping floors, and scraping off whatever disgusting surprises commuters left behind during the day. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than retail, and the hours were quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Most nights followed the same routine. The last passenger train would pull into the yard just after 1:30 a.m. Security would do a quick walkthrough, clear it, and then hand it off to us. By then, the place felt abandoned. No announcements, no passengers, just humming lights and echoes that never quite died. That night started completely normal. My partner, Luis, and I were assigned to the far end of the yard, which sucked because it meant a longer walk back to the office when we were done. We split up, like always. He took the front half of the train, I took the back. I remember putting my headphones in, music low enough that I could still hear my surroundings. That was rule number one. You never block out everything, not in places like that. The first few cars were uneventful, just empty seats, old newspapers, the occasional spilled drink. By the time I reached the second to last car, I noticed something strange. One seat was warm. I know how stupid that sounds, but I remember it clearly. I brushed my hand against the vinyl while spraying disinfectant, and it wasn't cold like the others. It felt like someone had just stood up. My first thought was that security missed someone. It wasn't impossible. They were lazy sometimes. I figured maybe a homeless guy had been sleeping and slipped out when he heard us coming. Still, it put me on edge. I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed down the empty car. Nothing. I finished cleaning that car faster than usual and moved on to the last one, the very end of the train. The car nobody ever wanted because it felt the most isolated, like you'd stepped out of the real world entirely. The lights flickered as I stepped inside. That happened sometimes, but it didn't help my nerves. I started at the far end, working my way toward the door. Halfway through, I noticed movement in the reflection of the window. Not a shadow. A person. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped. There was a man standing at the opposite end of the car, near the door I'd just come through. He was tall, thin, and dressed way too lightly for the cold. Just a hoodie and jeans. No jacket, no bag, no phone in his hands. I stared at him, waiting for him to say something. He didn't. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The train's out of service. You gotta get off." He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I said, "The train's closed," I repeated. "Security already swept it." Still nothing. That's when I noticed his face. Not in a dramatic horror movie way. It just didn't look right. His eyes were open, but unfocused, like he was staring past me instead of at me. And his mouth hung slightly open, like he'd forgotten to close it. I got that uncomfortable feeling you get when you realize you're not dealing with a normal person. I backed up slowly and reached for my radio. Before I could press the button, he took one step forward, then another. I raised my voice. "Sir, you need to stop right there." He didn't stop. He started walking toward me at a steady pace, not aggressive, not rushed, just deliberate, like he knew I'd move eventually and there was no need to hurry. I ducked into the small maintenance alcove near the door and slammed it shut behind me. It didn't lock, but it was enough of a barrier. My hands were shaking as I radioed for Luis. "Hey," I whispered, "there's someone still on my train." Static crackled, then his voice came through. "What?" "Security already." "I know. Just get over here, now." I could hear footsteps outside the alcove. Slow, measured. They stopped right in front of the door. I held my breath. The door handle didn't move. He didn't try to open it. He just stood there, close enough that I could see his shoes under the gap at the bottom. Minutes passed. My legs started burning from how tense I was. Then the footsteps backed away. I waited another 30 seconds before peeking out. The car was empty. Luis showed up a moment later, out of breath, asking where the guy went. We searched every car together. Nothing. No exits triggered, no signs of anyone jumping off the platform. Security swore no one was on the train when they cleared it. They even checked the cameras. According to the footage, I was alone the entire time. They told me I probably imagined it. Long shift, low light, stress. I wanted to believe that. But here's the thing I can't explain. The next night, the same train came back into the yard. Same car, same seat, still warm. This happened in the winter of 2019, right before everything in the world seemed to go sideways. I was living alone in a small apartment on the third floor of an older building, the kind with thin walls, unreliable heat, and plumbing that screamed every time someone used the shower. It wasn't a bad place, just loud and unpredictable ways. You learn to ignore most of it. That's important, because if I hadn't already been conditioned to weird noises, I might have noticed something was wrong much earlier. I worked from home back then, doing customer support for a tech company based 3 states away. My shift ran late, usually until around midnight. Most nights, the building was quiet by then. Occasionally, I'd hear footsteps in the hallway or a door slam, but nothing unusual. Until the knocking started. The first time it happened, I assumed it was a mistake. It was around 11:40 p.m. I was on a call, headset on, staring at my monitor when I heard 3 slow knocks on my front door. Not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. I muted my mic and waited. No one said anything, no footsteps afterward. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. I figured maybe a neighbor had the wrong apartment or someone knocked and realized it too late. I shrugged it off and went back to work. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same 3 knocks. This time, I called out through the door. Yeah? Nothing. I opened the door faster, half expecting to catch someone walking away. Still empty. The hallway lights buzzed softly. No movement, no sound. That's when I started paying attention. On the 3rd night, I didn't open the door right away. I stood completely still, listening. 3 knocks. I waited. Then, quietly, from the other side of the door, I heard breathing. Slow, controlled, like someone was standing inches from the wood. My stomach dropped. "Who is it?" I asked. There was a pause. Then a voice answered. "Maintenance." It sounded wrong. Not distorted or creepy in an obvious way, just flat, like someone repeating a word they'd heard before without fully understanding how it was supposed to sound. "I didn't put in a request," I said. Another pause. Then, "Checking the unit." That was it. No explanation, no key jingling, no clipboard noises, nothing. I didn't open the door. After about a minute, the breathing stopped. Footsteps retreated down the hallway. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called the property manager. She told me maintenance never worked that late and definitely hadn't been on my floor. She suggested maybe someone was messing with me. That explanation didn't sit right. On the 4th night, the knocking came earlier, 10:15 p.m. 3 knocks. I didn't respond. Then it happened again. 3 knocks, louder this time. I walked over and looked through the peephole. There was a man standing directly in front of my door, so close that I could only see part of his face, one eye, his cheek, a sliver of his mouth. He wasn't blinking. He wasn't smiling. He was just waiting. I stepped back slowly. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best effort. He leaned closer to the door. "I live here." My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. "I've never seen you," I said. Another pause. Then he said, "You will." That's when I called the police. I stayed on the line until they arrived. By the time officers checked the hallway, he was gone. They took a report, knocked on a few neighbors' doors, but no one claimed to know who he was. No cameras on that floor either, of course. The officers suggested I stay with a friend for a few nights. I did. When I came back, things seemed normal. Too normal. No knocking, no footsteps, nothing. For almost 2 weeks. I started convincing myself I'd overreacted. Stress, isolation. Maybe I'd scared myself into imagining details that weren't real. Then, one night, I got home late and noticed something off about my door. The deadbolt was unlocked. I knew for a fact I'd locked it. Inside, nothing looked disturbed. No missing items, no drawers opened. But in my bathroom sink, there was water pooled around the drain, like someone had just used it. And written in the condensation on the mirror, in uneven letters, was one word: hello. I didn't stay there another night. I moved out within a week. The police never found anything. No fingerprints, no forced entry, no reports matching my description. Sometimes I still think about that voice through the door, the way it didn't sound angry or threatening, just patient, like it knew it didn't need to rush. This is a true story, and unlike the others, it didn't happen to me. It happened to my uncle. He told me this years later, and even now he refuses to talk about it for too long. Not because he thinks people won't believe him, but because saying it out loud feels like inviting something back. Back in 2007, my uncle worked as a utility inspector for rural properties. His job was to check electrical poles, meters, and underground access points in areas most people never went to. Middle of nowhere type places, dirt roads, Forest Service land, abandoned farmland. He loved it. No boss breathing down his neck, no crowds, just long drives, paperwork, and quiet. Until one job changed everything. The assignment was simple: inspect a set of power lines that cut through a wooded area about an hour outside town. No homes nearby, no businesses, just trees and an old service road that hadn't been maintained in years. He arrived just before sunset. That was his first mistake. The place felt wrong immediately. Not in a dramatic way, just still. No birds, no insects, no wind. Even the trees felt frozen, like the forest was holding its breath. He parked the truck and stepped out with his clipboard and flashlight. About 10 minutes in, he heard it. Whistling. Soft. Slow. Off-key. At first, he thought it was wind moving through the trees in a weird way. But then it stopped. And started again. Same tune, same rhythm, but closer. He called out, "Hello?" No response. The whistling continued. He assumed it was another worker or maybe someone hiking nearby. Rural areas attract strange people, and he learned not to jump to conclusions. Then the whistling changed direction. It was moving, circling him. That's when he noticed something else. His radio had gone dead. No static, no signal, just silence. He decided to leave. As he turned back toward the truck,
the whistling stopped abruptly, and a voice replaced it. "Hey." It came from behind him. He froze. The voice sounded normal, friendly even, male, calm, too calm. He didn't turn around. "Can you help me?" the voice asked. My uncle swallowed hard. "Who are you?" he said. A pause. Then, "I'm lost." The voice was closer now, close enough that my uncle could hear breathing. But when he finally turned around, there was no one there. Just trees and the service road. He backed away slowly, never taking his eyes off the forest. That's when the whistling started again. Louder this time. Right behind him. He ran. Not a full sprint. He later said something in his brain warned him not to panic, but fast enough that his boots crunched loudly against the dirt road. The whistling followed, perfectly matching his pace. He reached the truck, yanked the door open, and jumped inside. The moment he slammed the door shut, the whistling stopped. Dead silence. Hands shaking, he started the engine and peeled out of there without looking back. He told himself it was adrenaline, stress, imagination. Until the next morning. He found mud on the driver's side door handle. Hand-shaped. He took the rest of the week off. But the job wasn't done. A few days later, his supervisor reassigned him to finish the inspection. My uncle protested, but he couldn't explain why without sounding insane. So he went back. Earlier in the day this time, bright sunlight, birds chirping, everything looked normal. He almost laughed at himself.